Welcome to Zimwaves TV, bringing you the latest news from Zimbabwe and around the world. We begin in Zimbabwe, where a new wave of arrests targeting opposition members and activists has intensified ahead of the Southern African Development Community (SADC) summit scheduled to be held later this month. The crackdown has drawn widespread criticism from human rights organizations and opposition parties, who accuse the government of using heavy-handed tactics to silence dissent. Reports have emerged of shocking torture and rape threats against those detained, with activists alleging that the security forces are using brutal methods to intimidate and suppress any opposition to President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government. The crackdown coincides with increased political tensions in the country, as citizens express growing dissatisfaction with economic hardships and political repression. Many fear that the government's actions are intended to stifle any potential protests or demonstrations during the SADC summit, where regional leaders are expected to discuss pressing issues affecting the region, including Zimbabwe's political and economic situation. Despite the government's efforts to maintain control, opposition leaders are calling for international intervention and urging the SADC to address the human rights abuses occurring in Zimbabwe. In another pressing issue, Zimbabwe is grappling with severe medicine shortages, a crisis exacerbated by rampant corruption and mismanagement within the healthcare system. Reports indicate that fraudulent activities, including the theft and resale of medical supplies, have left hospitals and clinics without essential medications, putting the lives of patients at risk. The situation has sparked outrage among citizens, who are demanding accountability and transparency from the government and healthcare authorities. Health experts warn that the medicine shortages are having dire consequences for vulnerable populations, including those with chronic illnesses and children. The lack of access to necessary medications is leading to increased mortality rates and worsening health outcomes. In response to the crisis, civil society organizations are calling for an independent investigation into the corruption allegations and urging the government to implement reforms to ensure the efficient distribution of medical supplies. Meanwhile, international aid organizations are stepping in to provide emergency assistance, but they emphasize that sustainable solutions are needed to address the root causes of the shortages. Turning to regional news, Zambia is currently facing a significant electricity shortfall of 1,000 megawatts, prompting the government to announce plans to import power from neighboring countries South Africa and Zimbabwe. This move aims to mitigate the impact of widespread power outages that have disrupted daily life and economic activities across the country. The electricity deficit has been attributed to a combination of factors, including low water levels at hydroelectric power stations and aging infrastructure. Zambian authorities have emphasized the urgency of the situation, as prolonged power cuts have affected industries, businesses, and households, leading to economic losses and inconveniences for citizens. The planned power imports are expected to provide temporary relief, but experts warn that a long-term solution is necessary to address the underlying issues contributing to the energy crisis. Meanwhile, South Africa and Zimbabwe are negotiating the terms of the electricity supply agreements, with both countries recognizing the importance of regional cooperation in addressing energy challenges. In Nigeria, a wave of protests is sweeping the nation as citizens take to the streets to voice their frustration over the high cost of living and economic challenges facing the country. Nearly 700 people have been arrested in connection with the demonstrations, which have erupted in major cities across Nigeria. Protesters are decrying rising inflation, unemployment, and the government's perceived inability to address the economic crisis. The protests reflect widespread discontent among Nigerians, who are struggling to cope with soaring prices for basic goods and services. In response to the unrest, Nigerian authorities have deployed security forces to maintain order, but human rights groups have expressed concern over reports of excessive force used against demonstrators. The protests have drawn attention to the need for comprehensive economic reforms and increased government accountability. Meanwhile, the international community is closely monitoring the situation, with calls for dialogue and peaceful resolution of grievances. In Somalia, a devastating attack by the militant group Al-Shabaab has claimed the lives of at least 32 people at a busy beach in Mogadishu. The attack, which involved gunfire and explosions, targeted civilians enjoying a day at the popular Lido beach. Witnesses described scenes of chaos and panic as people attempted to flee the area. The Somali government has condemned the attack and vowed to intensify efforts to combat terrorism and restore security in the region. Al-Shabaab, an extremist group affiliated with Al-Qaeda, has carried out numerous attacks in Somalia over the years, aiming to destabilize the government and impose its strict interpretation of Islamic law. The recent attack underscores the ongoing security challenges facing Somalia, despite efforts by the government and international partners to strengthen counterterrorism measures. In the wake of the tragedy, the international community has expressed solidarity with Somalia and reiterated its commitment to supporting peace and stability in the region. In international news, political tensions in Venezuela continue to rise as President Nicolas Maduro and his opponents organize parallel rallies. The rallies reflect deep divisions within the country, with both sides vying for public support ahead of upcoming elections. Maduro's supporters are rallying behind his administration's socialist policies, while opposition leaders are calling for democratic reforms and an end to economic mismanagement. The situation in Venezuela remains volatile, with the potential for further unrest as political parties campaign for influence. In the United Kingdom, violent protests have spread to Sunderland following the recent Southport killings, highlighting growing unrest and social tensions within the country. The protests, which began as peaceful demonstrations against police violence and systemic racism, have escalated into clashes with law enforcement, resulting in property damage and injuries. Community leaders are urging calm and advocating for constructive dialogue to address the underlying issues fueling the unrest. The UK government has pledged to investigate the incidents and work towards fostering unity and understanding among communities. In Bangladesh, authorities have banned protests organized by the political party Jamaat-e-Islami, citing security concerns and the potential for violence. The decision has sparked debate over freedom of expression and political rights, with critics arguing that the ban infringes on citizens' democratic rights to peaceful assembly. Jamaat-e-Islami, a prominent Islamist party in Bangladesh, has been a controversial political force, with a history of involvement in anti-government activities. The government's decision to ban the protests comes amid heightened tensions in Bangladesh, where citizens are demanding accountability and transparency from political leaders. Human rights organizations are calling for dialogue and urging the government to uphold democratic principles while addressing security concerns. As the situation unfolds, international observers are closely monitoring developments and emphasizing the importance of protecting fundamental freedoms in Bangladesh. In sports, Nigeria's women's basketball team has achieved a remarkable milestone by qualifying for the Olympic quarterfinals. The team's success is a testament to their skill, determination, and hard work, and it has inspired pride and excitement among Nigerians. The qualification marks a significant milestone for Nigeria, which continues to make strides on the international sports stage. As the team prepares for the next round of competition, they are receiving an outpouring of support from fans and well-wishers, who are eager to see them bring home a medal. In a more somber note, the Nigerian music industry is mourning the loss of an icon, as Onyeka Onwenu, a celebrated singer and actress, has passed away at the age of 72. Onwenu was renowned for her powerful voice and impactful music, which addressed social issues and advocated for women's rights. Throughout her career, she released numerous hit songs and earned accolades for her contributions to the entertainment industry. Fans and fellow artists are paying tribute to Onwenu's legacy, remembering her as a trailblazer who paved the way for future generations of musicians. Thank you for tuning in to Zimwaves TV. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more news updates from Zimbabwe and around the world. Stay informed and stay connected.